the regular meeting of the Charter Revision Committee to order at 7 o'clock. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So if everybody wants to take a minute, just to kind of review the minutes. It was a brief meeting last time, so. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as submitted.
I think David Gallan's name is Gallant, it's not Gallant. There's no T on his name.
It's Glahn.
L-A-H-N.
Glahn.
I will second Nick's amended motion.
Any other discussion on the minutes as submitted? Hearing none, I'll move to vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Do that part. Correspondence. I don't think we have any other than bills, and we've got a section on the agenda for that. So we will move on to public input. We'll open the floor.
Billy Michael, 27.5 Leawood Avenue. I had a question about minutes, and if there's a possible way to have an addendum to minutes, because you just said, when we read the minutes, it says Billy Michael, Fleetwood Avenue, among other comments, bought a local newspaper dated 1986. True. Read a quote about the advisory question. Minutes are the message we sent to a future we're not going to see. I love going back into the vault and seeing minutes of meetings and getting information about what was said. This is in reference to a defense of the advisory question and why we should have advisory questions. And there's no, it's so decontextualized. It says, I did bring a paper and I read a quote, but there's no reference to the point that my public input as a citizen in 2019 is, I want to remain a town with advisory questions, especially because of the debate we had in 1986. I think that has to, I would make an addendum to it personally. If there's is there a way I can add that so somebody 50 years from now, a real nerd that's interested in this kind of stuff, could have that in there? Because it doesn't, and it's not because, it's not my personal ego or a sense of legacy, it's just, when I go back and read minutes of meetings, I get a lot, especially the Charter Revision, there's a lot of information in those previous Charter Revision Commission minutes. And this would not offer anything to somebody in the future. And that's it. I mean, the minutes are approved, I understand. But is there a mechanism that I as a citizen could add an addendum to these minutes? So I could explain why.
If it's a regular meeting, then really the minutes don't have to say anything more than just your name and your address. I don't have to add anything to that. If it's a public hearing, then, you know, and there's public input, then that's the place where more detail would be given.
Okay. Well,
And I think
the charter of the town. Go ahead.
I think
but
50 years from now, they're not going to look at the notes. They're going to look at video on it.
Yeah, but you can't assume that. You can't. I could. I'm not going to debate this. The minutes of a charter revision from citizenry, the commentary is key. It's really important. And to have no reference in the minutes that I'm speaking in defense of the advisory question. There's no way anybody would know that in the future. Okay. And I would like
I think there's two solutions. One would be if you brought an article that had value to what we're debating, then submit it to us so it can be part of the minutes, and it's there historically as well, whether it's a copy or even a reference to that.
So a copy of that 1986 paper.
Yeah, I mean, if that's so. So it's if your concern is the historical accuracy of what people in the future are gonna go, and we know that it's reference to paper. That's a pretty large, for even us to figure out, large target to throw out there to find this paper that was referenced of why you're against the pulling the question from the referendum. And then I think another component of it too, just the clarity of what you're requesting and what you're standing against. You know, like that, maybe a moral to the story of why so it's not so much nuance that we have to draw
But
out.
that was in my testimony.
Okay.
I'm saying that's what I spake
Mhm.
of, but there's no record of that in the public record.
Okay.
That's what, I think it hurts the future. It doesn't serve the future. And, okay, so anyway, that's one thing. The other thing, I'm gonna reiterate because, in the public record of the future, my public input may only be, among other comments, like I'm against the 5-man board of selectmen. That's not in the public, you know, I'm against the 5-man board. I wanna be on record as saying a citizen spoke against the 5-man board of selectmen, 4-year terms, and the dissolution of town meeting form of government, and retention of the advisory questions.
Okay. I mean, and just to play devil's advocate, we're gonna have 2 public hearings, right? And do you think your opinions are gonna waver from the first one where you stated that to the next one that we schedule?
All I can base this on is when I go into the vault and I read the minutes of past Charter Revision Commission meetings,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of comment from the citizens of Bethel
Mhm.
for whom the charter is created to serve, and I don't see it now.
Okay.
I don't see
But,
that.
I studied history, so when you have a comprehension of where to find the information you want, and you look at a charter revision and how things fall, clearly the public hearings carry more weight than the monthly meetings. You know, I don't think there's gonna be a ton of concern about what we were paying Nick Vitti back then, or 50 years from now, and that's gonna be reflected in the minutes. So somebody with that desire and that acumen is gonna go to the meetings that have the clear articulation of the positions of the citizenry. I mean, I'll see you every meeting
Yeah.
we have for the rest of these,
Yeah.
correct? So,
And we don't know that. You and I don't
But it's
know.
also fair to say public input is public input regardless of where it is.
understood, but it's,
It's just as important in
Mhm.
what setting.
yep,
It was more, there's more public input available to the public in the past than there is in this. Because I go back to those former meetings, because I've been to 5 Charter Revision Commission
Okay.
meetings, and I like reading, I like seeing what people said in 1989 and what 1995. You know, it's a terrific study in democracy.
sure. And the beauty of it, to his point, this is the first one we videoed. So the conversation you and I are having right now, when we're dust and in the ether, floating around space, people are gonna hear exactly what I said.
Well, this will be obsolete. They'll have them flat in your brain.
So is handwriting now, right?
Yeah,
So,
I tell you.
and that's how it was done in the past.
It's gonna-
We evolve. It's part of our species. Heard and noted, Mr. Michaels. Anybody else? Yes.
Same thing for you, obviously. So to Billy's point, I think that we had this conversation back with Aquarian, and it was a big, big thing because we felt, some of us who attended, we said that the minutes did not reflect the tenor of the meeting, that it sounded as if everyone was all happy and agreeing the way it was laid out. And then at that time, we were told, and which I understand in Robert's rules, really all you have to do is put the name of the person who spoke and whether a motion was made, passed, or whatever. But here's my point is all or nothing, because it's better to have nothing than to have something that misrepresents. And what I said is, in my opinion, misrepresented in the sense of, I never asked to modify Robert's rule. I would have to know where to find Robert in order to actually do that. I said I wanted to consider, you know, when it's a town meeting and when the question's being, you know, is going to be move that there can be some modification at that point by the moderator. I in no way am proposing to change Robert's rules. And secondly, you know, I specifically said, town meeting form of government. You know, I didn't say the form of government we have now, the town meeting form of government, which is, you know, the heart and soul of Bethel. So for me, the fact that not only is this dispassionately worded, which is fine, but it's not accurately described. So, but I will want to also say that during that aquarium thing, and Billy, I don't know if you recall this, Matt said that if we want to, we can adjust or we can make our own addenda to our comments and submit them to be part of, it wouldn't be in the minutes per se, but it would be in the correspondence book if someone wanted to look through. So that is a possible solution for someone to like.
Yeah,
write
certainly.
and read, yeah, and then, and it's so not just to go.
We'll look forward to it
Yeah,
next month and
very
submit it into the record.
So it'll be to the record.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Gallagher.
Thank you, Philip Gallagher, 15 Sunset Hill Road. I intended to come down earlier in your schedule to give you the benefit of my experience in town government, but it's whatever it's worth. But April, I think the meeting was canceled. May, I had a conflict. June, I was at a graduation in Savannah, Georgia, so I'm here tonight.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to say, I between 1978 and 2013, I spent 28 years in town government, 4 years on the Board of Assessment Appeal, 12 years as a selectman with what I call broken service, and 12 years as a member of the Board of Finance with broken service, which all ended in 2013, and I'm not looking to renew it. But anyway, and just review a few significant charter changes that I saw over the years. In 1985, I was on the Board of Finance, and it was a big change that year in the charter revision because the first selectman up until that time was also chairman of the Board of Finance, chairman of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. The Charter Revision Commission came up with a recommendation that year that wasn't a good thing. There should be, you know, checks and balances, and the first selectman was no longer the chairman of the Board of Finance. And the first non-first elected chairman of the Board of Finance was me back in that, because I was on from 83 to 87. In the early 90s, I saw the transition to the budget referendum. The early 90s, which was a hot topic at the time. And it passed, and we've been doing it ever since. Just as an aside, back in the 70s, we had town meetings that were probably almost had as big a turnout as we get in the budget referendums. Huge turnout. My father used to moderate them, and it was 600, 700, 800, 900 people in a town meeting. You go on at 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't think we want to see a return to that, but that happened. In 2000, I was on the Board of Selectmen, and I got the Board of Selectmen to pass a resolution, which Wendy Smith always called Phil's law, which eventually was adopted by the Charter Revision Commission around 2003, 2004. It was this, that it was the duty of the chairman of either an elected or appointed boards, like the Police Commission, Park and Rec, Library, to present the budget. Because I noticed, when I was on the Board of Selectmen from 99 to 2001, and I had been on previously in 96, actually off in 87 to 96. And I noticed a big change between the time I got off in 96, actually it was 97, and 2000. And this was it. Prior to, when I was on with Charlie Steck and John Thiel, the chairman of each of these commissions presented their budget. I come on in 2000, and the police chief presented the police commission's budget. The members of the police commission were sitting to the side. The school superintendent presented the school super budget, and the board chairman of the Board of Education was nowhere to be seen. And then it got to the library board. And the library, a very nice young lady, had left 2 weeks before the budget presentation. And it was up to the chairman and the treasurer of the library board to present the budget. And I pitied them because they were at sea. They had no understanding of what they were rescinded, yet they had adopted it, just like the Board of Ed, just like the police do. So I got that into the charter, and if I made any other contribution in my 28 years of service, I think that was my finest hour, because it's been carried out ever since. I was also on the Board of Finance, but again, I said I had a lot of broken service in 2007, I think it was, when the split budget went into effect. And that's been in effect ever since, and it was controversial at the time, but it still goes on, and I don't know if there's any groundswell to change it. Another thing, you know, the minutes, I didn't intend to talk about the minutes, but one thing about the thoroughness of minutes, and I don't know if this is your purview, is this, that we don't get the local coverage in the newspapers anymore. We don't even have a local paper. And the Danbury paper, the subscription is about half what it was 30 years ago. So the amount of information people get from the local news coverage, unless they come to the meeting, is very limited. So the minutes could play a more important role there. Recommendation, the Board of Selectmen. I would recommend we keep it to a 2-year term, because if you look at the history of elections in Bethel, over the last 50 years, people in Bethel seem to want to change, more often than not change position. I'll give you some example. 1969, George Bertzel was elected by 3 votes, right, over Charles McCollum. Bertzel served 1 term. Charles McCollum served almost 3 terms. Then he took a state job, so he was not defeated for re-election. But his successor, Frank Clark, was appointed, was elected 3 times, was defeated, going for a 4th term. And the man who defeated him, Edward Mills, only served 1 term. Now, Cliff Urchin did serve 12 years, and his successor, but he was defeated for re-election eventually. And Charlie Steck served 2 terms. He served 4 years and retired undefeated. He was a smart man, but he did that. And his successor was Judy Novacek, who I lost to by 10 votes, if some of you can recall. And Judy served 2 terms, and she was defeated for a 3rd term by Mr. Burke. Mr. Burke served, I'm
left
sorry,
out
I
Alice.
left Alice out.
Right.
Alice served 1 term. She kind of proved my point, as well as George Bertzel and Ed Mills, and then she was ousted. And then she was followed by Burke, who served 2 terms, and then he was defeated going for a 3rd term. So Mr. Knickerbocker and Mr. Hergen are really the exception to the history of elections in Bethel. People they don't want to see 4 people in there for too long, unless they want to re-elect them. I do disagree a little bit with my friend here, Billy Michael, about the Board of Selectmen, a 5-man board. I could see some point of 5-man board for this reason. I served in 3 different situations on the Board of Selectmen. I was a majority selectman with Cliff Urchin, and I was a minority selectman with Charlie Steck, which is an entirely different role. The minority selectman is probably as important as any, because it's their duty to present an opposite viewpoint. And I didn't know Charlie Steck and John Thiel when I got elected with them, but we became good friends. But I called them, and I thought it was right. They did say to me as a side afterwards, you kept us out of doing a lot of crap, they said. And then the 3rd situation I was in with Judy Novacek, I didn't win my election, but I did poll more votes than her opponent. I mean her running mate, and I served 2 years with James Bryant as a majority selectman, and the 1st selectman was a minority. So I could see there's a need, I think, on the Board of Selectmen for debate, and I think maybe 5 might be a consideration. It's not going to cost a lot of money. You've heard me probably speak at town meetings about the budget meeting, which was changed by the previous Charter Subdivision Commission and adopted from May to April. Well, I see 3 or 4 reasons, some of which I've talked about, some I haven't, why it should go back to May. I think we saw this year a good reason. They failed to meet, the Board of Finance failed to meet the deadline for the 14-day period between the public hearing, when they had their public hearing, and the town meeting. They were a day or 2 short. I don't know if there's any penalty attached, but they didn't meet the requirement of the town charter. to meet that 14 days, so, and also that I think they don't get enough time to deliberate. As they say, the two boards were so really separated in 1985, so the Board of Finance doesn't serve the selectmen, it doesn't serve, I've heard a couple other chairmen of boards say to me on the side, well, I like it, the April referendum, because I can plan better. But that's not, you know, the Board of Finance needs proper time to deliberate, and they don't. I noticed, I read earlier in the year that the Board of, in Monroe, they changed the charter back to changing their town meeting from April to May, and one of the reasons says that the Board of Finance needs more time to deliberate. And another reason I've mentioned is, you know, new money comes out, like this year the budget went down, right, the town side went down. After that, they found a couple $100,000 to, from the, what was it, from the
With high school renovation.
high school renovation that could be applied painlessly to the budget. Now, if they hadn't done, if the budget had passed, you would have taxed the people for $200,000 more, and what would have happened to that money, the other money? And also, I mentioned that when I was chairman of the Board of Finance in 2009, that the lowest level, or lowest year of the past recession, and there was a big call to zero out the budget, out, and I resisted that. I was a chairman. I said, let's see what happens. And the Board of Education, after April, first week of April, got, I don't know, they saved anywhere from $500,000 to $700,000 in their medical account, which allowed us to painlessly zero out the budget. And otherwise, we would have done it ahead of time, and it would have meant a lot more pain. So I think that should be changed. Now, all right, page 18 of the.
I'm sorry, what year was that, Mr. Gallagher?
Pardon?
What year, the instance you just referenced with the
The,
healthcare savings?
it was, let me think, I believe it was 209.
Okay.
It could be 209, I'd have to check, I had the minutes somewhere in a
Yep.
file cabinet on, but it's 209, I believe. Let me think. Yeah, I think that's it. I think the Board of Finance needs more time to deliberate. I mean, if you look at, they have to present, there has to be a budget made up by January 31st. Then they have the hearings in February, which is a short month, a lot of snow sometimes, a lot of cold weather. And they had snow and ice, and they didn't make the deadline. Another thought I had was on page 18, action requiring referendum. This is something I have been thinking about, and it's this. I think that any action requiring a referendum over $1 million should be held either in the November, when there's a general election, or in April, or April or May, whatever, you know, hopefully it goes back to that, maybe it won't, when the general budget vote is. And I'll tell you why. I mean, you want for instance, to save the cost of an extra referendum, and also to ensure a bigger voter turnout. Now, I'll just give you one example, and I'm not judging whether it was a good or a bad vote. The last vote we had, big referendum, was for the 2 school renovations. I think it was a $65 million vote. That was held a month before the November election. Why couldn't it held in November? And the turnout was, I think, around 2,600 people. Here's the biggest incurrence in the history of Bethel debt-wise, and you know, you had, well, how many? Less than 25% of the people voting on it. That's not right. That's not democracy. So I think that you could have the referendum for anything over $1 million, either in the spring or in the fall. And one other thing I got to turn to page 31 or 2 in the charter. You have your charters with you?
Mm-hmm.
31. Transfers, I know what it is. Now, the last Charter Revision Commission, they had 2 proposals, one of which was rejected, thank God, in my viewpoint, and one which was passed. The one which was rejected would have handcuffed the Board of Finance and put the town budget on as the same status as the Board of Ed budget. I mean, the Board of Finance only can set the bottom line for the Board of Ed budget. They're their own Board of Finance after that. But the proposal was made, the last Charter Revision Commission, was to treat the town budget the same way, with the Board of Finance could not make any transfers, which if you think the ultimate conclusion, you could have been tied in knots if the budget went down, they never could have done anything. But they did put something in there which I think may prove mischievous as time goes by, particularly if you have the Board of Finance controlled by one political party and the Board of Selectmen by the other, and they're at loggerheads. And that's the Article 10, C10 4C, where it says the Board of Selectmen, when requested by any town agency, may make budget neutral. You see where do I have to read it? Transfers in amount not to exceed $50,000 within said agency's own operating budget. However, any transfer made under this section shall not increase the number of town employees or encumber future budgets. But the thing is, you've got two boards now with the same power that dip into that account and pull it out. Suppose they got fighting. I think it should be clear just what, or that should be stricken. Because in the previous paragraph B, that they do restrict the Board of Selectmen, but by the Board of Finance. But C is, could create a free-for-all. So I think it's something you should look into, think about. I guess that's it. I don't know if you have any questions, but I appreciate you giving me a few minutes to
I have one question, if you don't mind.
You as well.
Phil, you talked about the referendum question of $1 million.
Yeah.
The proposal is for the utilities.
Pardon?
The proposal is for the referendum, $1 million to go to 2 million for the utility, for the water side of it,
Yeah,
not for any other
Oh, I
capital.
know, I'm
improvement.
not talking, I'm just talking about referendums in general. You have 2 chances a year to have a full town vote. Is it gonna hurt anything if you wait to one or the other? So it's like the one I mentioned, the school one, for the middle of October, when you had an
65,
election a month
yeah.
later for 65 million.
Mhm.
You had the 2,600 people vote on it, when in a month later you had the town election when 5,000 or 6,000 turned up.
No, but are you against raising it from $1 million to 2 million for
I
the
haven't
utility
thought
side?
about that, now, I'd have to, I didn't give that much thought.
I mean, everybody, the testimony from the public utility said everything's $1 million for upgrades in the water system.
Everything, yeah. But that's different though, right, the utilities? I don't know, I have to think about, I'm more concerned with getting more people to vote on it,
Thank you.
whether it's 1 million or 2 million.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks for your time.
Yours as well. Appreciate it. Is there anybody else who would like to offer public? Yes.
With respect to Mr. Gallagher, we actually do have a paper in town now. We have several hundred subscribers and over 60 outlets.
What's
And
that?
The Community Gazette, which I publish.
Sorry, your name and address.
Brad Colts, 1 Fairtown Gov. One of the things that, in talking about transparency, that I like to raise is very often we try to get information out about meetings, and our current approach to publishing agendas is pretty close to meetings. I would ask that when you look at the whole issue of transparency, perhaps you look at for regular meetings, extending the deadline to at least post in its initial structure an agenda that's maybe 48 hours in advance instead of 24. It is mad scramble trying to cover these things and trying to let readers and the public know about them. And I would just ask that in the spirit of that transparency, perhaps we look at extending that. Obviously, those get amended and changed as needs arise, but people have the basic need of the thing. They can decide whether they want to participate or not, and that might address part of the turnout issue. As I sit in a room with an audience of 5.
How many people get that paper again? I'm sorry.
We have several hundred subscribers. We have over 60 outlets. Using the.
You mean by advertisement, that are advertising, or that you're placing the paper at?
We place the paper
At 60 outlets?
It's 63 actually.
But I haven't seen it lately. It's,
Oh no, we're out.
I just haven't
Yeah.
seen.
what happens is we can't keep up. I put them somewhere and then they're out.
I see it.
Yeah.
What differentiates it?
Like, I stopped in the
That's
morning.
fine, sir.
It's like,
I
it's
didn't
pages.
take it that way, but I'm just saying, we're trying to,
Yeah.
we're trying to get the word out on these things.
What
A little
differentiates
more.
a subscriber from an outlet?
Oh, the outlets are free. People can come pick them up for free. Subscribers pay us $52 a year to get it.
And it's sent to their home, or? Okay.
Yep.
Right, is that weekly?
Yes.
Oh, that is weekly?
Yes. So just for, in terms of coverage, a little more lead time for the basic agenda would be a huge help.
Are you the sole reporter going out to meetings and everything?
He's a busy guy.
I'm the primary one. I have probably 7 correspondents who send me.
7?
But that number goes up and down depending on how they're feeling about it.
Is that- Sure. Mr. Straighten.
Rich Straight, 7 Codfish Hill Road. I know the board can look at anything on the Board of Selectmen items that we're talking about, but this go-around, there was no mention or there was no charge about the 5-man board, so unless that's brought up again, then, you know, we weren't looking for that, we were just looking for the 4-year thing. Point that out. That was last go-around.
Yep. Is there anybody else? Everybody's participated? So we will close that section of the agenda and open up review of proposed charter revision by members in the committee of the committee. I don't think we set a second public hearing date, right? We're gonna wait until we got through. I think one of the things I wanna look at, because last week or last month, we looked at everything kind of in full and agreed whether everything was worth pursuing at some level. This week, I'd kind of like to rank them in terms of whether it's a housekeeping item, just something that there's not much controversy assigned to it, or something there's going to be a lot more discussion to, because I'd like to shape our next public hearing along those items, so we can get the most input to everybody's point here. Us being specific about what we're seeking from the community, in terms of their perception of the work we're doing on issues that impact them the most. So I kind of I went through quickly, kind of ranked the ones we've been looking at. You know, the housekeeping ones were the public works piece, in terms of defining the public work director's role. I think we asked Nick last time to look at other comparable positions. The technical change from data processing department to the information technology department, the meetings component, allowing meetings to take place at the appropriate venue, with the appropriate notification according to that commission. What else?
The controller using a different term.
Yep, yeah, exactly. And then C-3-2, technical change to his or her. So, I mean, if anybody has any disagreement or concern that these are probably worthy a little more input and debate, I think they're pretty vanilla and innocuous, that nobody's gonna get their feathers ruffled if we move these on to correct these, you know, oversights or evolutions of terminology. All right?
So how about, can we add the appointments to Board of Selectmen, where all members of appointed boards and commissions shall be qualified electors and vacate the position if they don't live in the town? I think that one's pretty
Okay.
vanilla.
Yeah, I had that in the next group, because we did get a little bit of input from that.
Well, I would recommend we take consensus and take consensus vote and put it right in that vanilla category.
Okay.
I don't know that anybody on this board could argue that point. Part of the problem with the boards and commissions is they don't get a quorum when you get a particular member that doesn't show up, right?
Okay.
I mean, how do you argue that point?
Yep. Yeah, I have no issue with moving it up to the housekeeping line. Does anybody else have any concerns? I mean, I think the only input we had was the handing off the
The
control.
vehicle of how to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I thought. I thought
Yeah.
everybody agreed that absolutely, if you don't live in the town, you ought to vacate the position, so.
But yeah, but the committee gets the right of first, right? Is it that, I think.
Yeah, we were talking about last time, the mechanisms
Oh,
of
right.
removal.
Right.
So did we
Yeah,
have that
yeah.
sorted out?
Well, but there was
yet?
nothing in charter, and this is what was gonna give us the bite to do that, right?
And I think we need to have that
Yeah.
so I don't know that we're in a position to put it in the vanilla category, but there's some work to do on it.
Well, but
No,
it's not
can
in,
you
it's not in
speak
there
up?
now, and this is why we need it.
We can't hear you down
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
But, I'm sorry, you can't hear?
Well,
I'm
the
sorry.
air conditioner,
Okay.
we can't hear you.
I was just questioning because there's some work to do about, the proposal, I believe, in terms of now you decided someone, should resign, maybe they're not resigning, is there some kind of mechanism? And Nick said he hadn't really finalized the work on that, so we
What
don't
if a
have a,
person doesn't wanna resign?
we don't have a
We,
proposal
you know,
really.
you have to have something.
Right.
Well, I think that's
To meet
not
to
even
make sure
legal in
they
the state.
could.
There's no recall provision, right? So
Not
that's-
on elected.
Yeah.
And I think the context we were speaking about was more on the appointed side than
Right.
the elected,
Yes.
Mhm.
where the problem stems from.
I know we have a concern on, in talking from the wetland board, we have a concern of members who have been elected who have never shown up, and there's no way to remove them, so I would say it would be on the elected side as well.
I don't know that we can on the elected side.
Tougher on the elected side.
And I
The
think that's what
appointed
you said, a
side.
legal
Yeah.
block.
Tougher on the elected side than the
We have
appointed
to be
side.
sure that we can do that legally.
Is there an attendance provision we can, in terms of service, or if you're elected, you're elected?
I think elected, you're pretty much stuck with
Okay.
it. I mean, obviously, if you're no longer residing in the town, that's a different story.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what I mean, that's what the language that, our proposed language says.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's fine on the elected. Some of the discussion last time talked about,
Who gets to fill the seat?
Mhm.
who gets to fill the seat, but I remember specifically on the appointed side, we discussed and I passed out, portions of the Wilton chart, which
Yeah.
actually has a cause provision for removal and an attendance provision, but it's not an arbitrary decision. The person gets a chance to be heard by Board of Selectmen or something along those lines. So
Mhm.
that was some of the thinking that I was giving you guys on how to structure that, if we were to go that route.
Okay. I think,
But that's where I was going, Nick, that should be in the vanilla column as you termed it, as to work on it, to get the language, so it's in our charter next time.
Okay.
I don't think that should be the debate. The debate should be how we get the wording so that there's teeth to it. But the goal is to have it in there.
yeah, yeah, but
That's all I'm trying to get at.
But I'm just saying, for the public hearing, are we gonna want input from the town committee members and on that specific, or do you think we have enough information right now to reshape the?
Well, I think we should give the public every opportunity to comment on it, but I
Mhm.
think the public should know what this commission for the last 6 months has been thinking about.
Yeah.
So I think we should take a consensus vote on what we believe in and what we go forward to the next public hearing with, and because we're the ones that are gonna propose this and send it to the selectmen, okay?
Exactly.
So we decide what we like, and obviously input, they could, you know, this has been public record, and they could give input right up to the last day on it.
Yeah, yep,
Okay.
yep.
But I just got kind of a question, so at the public hearing, are we going to have certain proposals that we, are putting out there as the work of this commission that we endorse?
Absolutely.
Then we're gonna have to, so maybe I'm misunderstanding what we're trying to accomplish here, so we're really not at that point to have something with this particular issue yet.
No, that's why I thought we should take a consensus from every commissioner here deciding if they're in favor of a particular item or not, to move forward with language
Even
to
if we
get to the
don't have
public hearing.
actual language.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah,
And
it's all
then-
concept.
And then you're hoping
Because if
that
everybody, if I vote
by the
yes
time
and
we get to
everybody
the
votes
public
no,
hearing-
then what's the sense of us paying the attorney to come up with language if it's never gonna
Okay, I see
pass
what
this
you're saying.
floor?
And then
Okay.
ultimately, when we get to the public hearing, we will have these proposals.
Absolutely, and the
Normally,
public are gonna
to-
comment on it, and they're gonna either their testimony is
Okay.
gonna change our opinion, or just strengthen our
Really
opinion
looking
moving
for-
forward.
Okay.
I understand.
Yep.
I see what you're saying.
Okay, I
Alright.
do too. I wasn't sure.
Okay, so then it maybe should be, because the housekeeping are kind of like the no-brainer.
Right, well,
Yeah.
that's, but I think that, the reason I just brought that up, I think it should be a no-brainer,
Okay,
in the same category.
all right.
Yep.
But with a little more work. I mean, some of these, it's like changing.
The concept.
Yeah, exactly,
Absolutely.
okay,
You-
all right.
Attorneys
Yeah.
could work on this and charge us $400 an hour for 8 hours for that,
Yep.
you know, they got that. you know.
Okay.
No.
It's not too bad. Still working on that. Overpay.
Yeah, we got a credit.
Yeah.
You know,
Not anymore, but like. All right, so on that issue, it's C7-1, appointments by the Board of Selectmen. I'll make a motion to continue that under our charter review. Yeah, to pursue revising that portion of the charter as part of our charge, I guess.
Could you repeat that?
You made that as a
Try-
motion?
Yeah.
Yeah, you need a
That
motion.
one
That's
item?
What
part
was
of-
that?
Yeah.
That's
That
part
one
of our-
item, or are you?
Well, isn't that what you
all
want?
those categories in?
Are we gonna lump them all in together, or?
Well, that's where I was going. I thought that one was just missed out of a non-controversial,
Okay, all right.
list, right? So if you pull that motion back and you just add or make the motion for all of the other, what you considered housekeeping
Okay,
items.
yeah, so let's go through everything then. I'm gonna
Perfect.
pull that motion.
Okay.
All right.
All right, are there, before I move on to my section 2, are there any other things we've discussed or reviewed that somebody feels should be in housekeeping?
We have
Is,
C7, C-7-1. That was the first one.
C-7.
Okay.
Yep.
is the location meetings, is that more housekeeping?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I
was
have
in there.
that.
We already
Yeah,
mentioned
in
it.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Nick, why don't you just give your titles again,
Yeah.
instead of the numbers?
So the ones I have are the action requiring referendum.
Yeah.
This is like my second level, like kind of non-controversial, but more.
But you might
to-
get there.
Yeah.
Will you just call off what number they are? Do you know?
Yeah.
That was
6-8.
C6-8. I added in change of the hearing date for the referendum, because we've heard that a lot. There's not necessarily a provision, but I think we've heard enough to decide whether we wanna move forward. And then C2-5, eligibility for office, which I guess kind of ties into C7-1, right?
What was the number for the changing the date?
I'm not sure where that sits.
You know what,
in
I
the
think,
chart.
is it C10-2? Yeah, I think so.
Appropriation of budget, yep, T10-2.
C10-2E.
Yeah.
Yeah, E, yep.
Okay. Okay.
In terms of. Do any of those feel like they're gonna need, more debate amongst us, or, testimony from the citizens for us to make an informed decision?
I got 6
I'm pretty
dash 10 dash
satisfied.
2E,
Well,
what was the
what-
third one?
I had a couple
Sure.
additions too, maybe that we can lump into the
Okay.
same category. Cause we talked, one of the things you gave me a couple meetings ago was to come up with some draft language on some ones that were more vanilla-like, that we
Mhm.
seem to have a consensus, and maybe we could just put to a vote and actually say we have a consensus. One was the referendum trigger on the capital utility projects,
Mhm.
C6-8.
Can you repeat that, please, Nick?
C6-8, which raises the referendum trigger on just the utility departments where it's being paid all out of user fees.
Yeah.
And then C7-11, which I thought we kind of had a consensus on changing the PUC to a 7-member board.
That's fair.
What
Yeah.
number was
And I
that,
have,
sorry?
yeah, I have that up in housekeeping.
And then I had C8-9, which removes references to water and sewer from public works and adds maintenance of roads, fleet vehicles, and management of town buildings.
Yeah.
I think this one was already mentioned by Nick, the change data processing department to information technology department, C8-13E. And then, this one we've talked about a bunch, and it references a number of sections. I had suggested some adding language on the publication.
Yep.
For kind of planning into the future when the state statutes change by adding, everywhere in the charter, and I can give all the section numbers where we have a publication requirement, saying publication will take place in a newspaper having a general circulation in the town, which is what most of the state statutes state right now. But add kind of a catch-all or another medium consistent with the requirements of the Connecticut general state statutes.
Yeah.
What number is that?
That is a number of numbers.
Okay.
It is
Yeah.
C4-4B
Okay.
and D, C4-5A, C8-13, small c-4 double I,
I'm sorry, small c dash 4 double I.
correct? C10-2G and C10-4A. And someone could double check, that's all I have where publication is required
That's the
within the
ones I
charter.
have, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've got it right here, sorry. Sorry, yep.
So I thought all those were kind of ones that we had a consensus on or general.
I remember you were gonna go out and do your homework and figure out if we could get away with it. We made reference to, well.
But that was, I think that was the solution. It was
Right.
a kind of a broader catch-all term versus, because Melanie expressed some concern about,
And I have some
Yeah.
concern.
Is
about-
it legal or not, but I think Melanie said, but it should be in there so we're ready.
yeah.
Which is what he did.
Yeah.
It's saying essentially if the statutes change, whatever is permissible, you can do. We don't have to come back and revisit the charter
Mhm.
when it happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right, it does seem like the housekeeping things.
Okay. Anything else we haven't addressed in terms of, more kind of technical, wonky bylaw stuff versus the, all right?
I think we put all the basic housekeeping.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay. So,
So is that all your first here, Nick?
yeah, I think
First
we
tier?
can move all those up to the first tier, so. That one got moved up, C7-1.
Can we get those tiers in the notes, or, because I lost track of all the numbers?
Yeah, well, we
I'm
don't.
like, I'm like, thank God it's being recorded.
Well, this is gonna be the fun part, cause
So what
I'll
I'll
probably
do.
bundle into a single motion.
Yeah, so
Okay.
what I'll do is in the minutes, I'll, obviously type put the number, but then I'll put what the category is beside it.
Perfect.
And list all of those out with this motion.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
And did we talk about C2-5 eligibility for office? We did, right?
Yep.
That was, okay.
Yes, it's on the list. May I give you the list that I have just to make sure that I haven't missed
Perfect.
anything?
Yep, that'd be
Okay.
incredibly helpful.
Starting from the top side,
The
right?
top, yes. I have C-7-1, C-6-8, C-2-5, C-10-2E, C-6-8, C-7-11, C-8-9, C-8-13, and then the newspaper publications.
Yeah.
C-4-4B, 4D, C-4-5A, C-4, I'm sorry, C-8-13, C-4-II, C-10-2G, and C-10-4A. Any others?
The newspaper.
So, see that
The
six,
newspaper's that group, that last
Yeah.
group.
Yeah,
It's that co-grouping, that's it.
Yeah.
so, question on the C-6-8, that's bringing $1 million up to $2 million? We're considering that housekeeping, or is there more discussion on that?
I think
That
that
was
was just
housekeeping so
the
far.
utility.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
that was just a trigger on the utilities. Was that just a specifically utility?
Yeah.
I just have a question on it, so,
Sure.
a couple questions, so, I can
Okay.
wait until it's brought up, so.
Do you have C-11-11? Do you have C-11-11 in there, the meetings?
No.
Okay. Let's add that one.
Which ones?
The meeting places, meetings.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. C-11-11, yep.
And then C-3-2, the technical change to his or her.
C-3-2?
Yep.
Yeah.
C-3-2, okay.
To his or hers, yeah. Is what it read in the. And C-7-11 is the one
You got,
you want to talk about, right?
uh,
Is it the public
6-8,
utility?
I don't know if
6-8.
it's the same
I
thing
think it's
or not.
C-6-8, I think that's the
That's a $1 million.
referendum for regulated utilities, I think.
Okay. And then do you have C-7-11 on there?
Yes.
Yes.
Which
Okay.
one is that? Which one is
Public
That is the
Utilities
Public
Commission?
Utilities Commission.
Okay, and then that's increasing that from there.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. We'll have time to adjust, I think, if we feel like we missed one or two. You want to open up discussion about the
No,
raising the threshold?
well,
Any other
I-
questions? Yeah.
Two questions, and I don't even know if it would be in this section or not. I know pretty much everyone in this board is in favor of going to 2 million. I don't like doubling something like that. I mean, I've never seen in any budget thing I've been in, doubling something like that so quickly. I mean, I'm fine with going 1.5 or something like that. It's just all of a sudden you're going from a very stringent concern to what I consider wide open. You know, I like to see it more in steps. And the second concern, I was actually, and I don't know if it would be in this one, a thing that just passed for the water and sewer, and I was talking to some people, and they're questioning, you know, understandably it's a user fee, so why is it non-users are allowed to vote on that and make that decision when they have, basically, it was like you could vote on taxes are going up because it's only people who use it, so it's kind of like, I could vote yes because it ain't gonna affect me. So why, is it possible to put in it that it's only could be voted on by users or customers of that?
I think we'd have to create like a special taxing district or something to do that.
It's, the town is being held liable for the loan, for the overall, the PUC doesn't have the bonding capacity as the town, and that's why the town is really supporting it. That's why everybody has to vote on it.
So it
from the
impacts
town
our-
side.
Or Moody's rating and, okay.
So,
You know, and it was up to $2 million. We have to be concerned right now to try to keep projects just under $1 million that we're concerned with.
right.
But if we can go, you know, we're not looking to spend $2
No,
million.
I know you're very constringent on it and stuff. I'm not just looking at current administration, I'm looking at future as well. You know, it just, to me to go from you know, even if it was $10 to $20, it's like all of a sudden you're doubling.
In some
It's the
cases,
bottom.
if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Sure,
in-
please.
In some cases, we're under a state mandate, a
Okay.
consent order. As we were on Briarcliff, we had put, water mains in our pumping station, and that was, over $1 million. We had no choice, we had to do it anyway.
Right.
So if, even if the town voted against it, we would have still had to do it. Somehow, some way, the state would come in and made us, do that, so.
So let me ask you, of the project that you've seen over the years or recently, how many, like, percentage of that is above 1.5? Like, how much of a concern?
There was the, above 1.5,
Yeah.
the Eureka water tank
Mhm.
was the major one. The Briarcliff was probably 1.3
Yeah.
in that area there.
Right.
But again, when we're just designing a water tank, for Chestnut right now, so we don't know what that cost estimate's gonna be right now, so
Right.
we're hoping it's under $1 million, but we're not sure where it's gonna fall.
I just think it's a huge leap, doubling it that
But,
quickly.
and
That's
Rich,
all.
how much is that because we voted to keep our water system?
How much is it?
Be- like, having that leeway.
After the town rejected selling the water to Aquarium, the town went out and did a 40-year, plan,
Mhm.
and it was $85 million.
Yeah. So and that's what,
And
so.
out of the 85 million, we've probably only spent 15 so far.
Okay. And but part of this request is due to the fact that we now own a public utility, and the people who oversee that need the flexibility.
Okay.
To improve.
Yeah,
the water
yeah.
quality.
Okay.
And I think when the town decided that we didn't wanna sell it, we answered this question. $1 million is a lot of money to me, but I totally get it when you gave all the testimony that when a project comes in, you need the tools
Right, but
to
you
be able to
have no
fix the problem.
If
And
you're
and if it's over $1 million, you're just
So-
looking to get it done, not waiting for a next referendum vote.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the cost of the referendum, the legal fees for posted and all, and that.
Right, because the town decided we need to spend $1.5 million or $1.7 million because we decided to keep the water.
Correct.
So you can't say, well, geez, if it was $1 million, I guess I would have spent it, but it's $1.2 million, so let's not do it. I mean, you gotta spend the money.
Yeah. I mean, and we've got to account for the length of when this goes into effect and then when the next charter revision is. I mean, that could be 7 or 8 years, depending on how quickly or rapidly,
Well,
so.
it's as I mentioned, the forecast was an $85 million
Mhm.
improvement over the
Over
next
40 years, yeah.
years, so
Yeah.
it's gonna be an ongoing thing.
So that'll
for
bring us to
years.
15 years
Yeah.
into that.
I mean, there's water mains in the ground that are 120 years old already, that have to be replaced.
So,
Pat, to make you feel better about the dollar amount, probably 20 years ago when somebody put the $1 million in the
Yeah.
language, they probably said, that's a lot of money, why don't we put 500,000?
Well, it's
You know
just-
what I
it's-
mean?
Yeah.
it's just going double. All of a sudden, it's like, it's a huge, I mean, I don't know how much the projects cost and all that, but all of a sudden you're going from, you know, if you came like 1.2 mil, 1.4, I'm like, okay, it's, you know, when all of a sudden it's doubled, that's like a red flag that I see, you know. One last question. If it was 1.5, how many projects would have to go to referendum above 1.5, would you say?
Any major project.
Right,
As such as the water tank at Eureka was 2.3.
right. That would have to go even above
Right
2.
now, we're designing
I have no
projects
idea.
to keep within the $1 million
Right.
budget.
But
without
it's
going to
recently.
referendum.
Okay.
And this is the Bible for the next 7 years.
Right.
So
Okay.
$1.5 million might seem like it might do it now, but in 2 years with the cost of things,
Right.
everything might be $1.5 million, and now we might be having votes for $1.7 million.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna ask him a question that's gonna cause a hornet's nest.
Oh boy, here we go.
When you have a referendum, do you pay the town for the cost of having that referendum? Is that part of the cost?
No, we pay for the legal, but I don't think we pay.
So you don't pay
PUC
for the
doesn't pay
machines being checked,
Machine that,
the people working or any of that?
PUC doesn't pay for
The
the
donuts.
referendum.
We don't, no, we don't get donuts.
Really?
No.
I wouldn't do it.
Well, PUC doesn't pay for the referendum.
So-
So I'm
Because
just
the voters-
asking
the
if
voters
that
in
was
the town,
part
the whole
of,
voters are paying for it.
okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point about the voters, the non-voters, that there are non-owners or stakeholders.
Mhm.
Everyone is, because the town is the biggest user of the
That's
public
fair.
water, and we're all paying for it, even if we have septic tanks there. And, you know.
If you live in Stony Hill, you're still paying a water bill because the kids
Yes,
go to the
it
school
is.
system.
Right.
Right.
The
Got it.
school
Yeah,
and
one
town.
more-
School,
well-
the police.
That's
And
on
then the biggest
that's in that
user.
asterisk list on the
Right.
other side.
That's
Yep.
what
Yeah.
we're paying for, so.
That's a fair point.
You can tell I was with a lot of landlords last weekend, so.
Yeah.
Been a-
And I
been a
understand that
topic.
concern, I mean, like, 'cause those meetings can get torpedoed, you know, you get a phone call chain, and then all of a sudden, you know, you have no water pressure in, you know, forever, because
Yep.
It's
somebody
a
had a burn
community
themselves.
service, it benefits the community to have good services, regardless of where you live in the town, because it affects home values.
Yeah.
And good water.
Yeah.
And firefighting.
Yeah, we've learned a lot
Thank you
about
for the
that.
information. I just get a red flag when it's
Well,
a double.
Mhm.
Hopefully I explained it
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
And the thing, yeah, without
It's
the,
something very dear to me.
very specific. Okay, is that ease your concerns
Yes, it
enough to
does.
move it up?
Yes.
Okay. So
Do we keep it on the list?
You keep it on the list.
All right.
Yeah,
I feel like we did something.
okay.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I'm gonna rely on your list, cause I was not taking
Okay.
sufficient notes, but now that that list is set as a consensus, do I have to go ahead to start drafting language?
Well, we didn't vote on that motion yet. I don't
It's
think
not-
anybody
Yeah,
made
yeah.
a motion yet, but.
Yeah, so yes, I'd say, I'll build that into the motion. I wanna make sure I get them all.
Do you want me to call off the numbers?
C6-8, I think I got it.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Well, just, are your total, you had 7 or no? How many off the list have we got?
That publication one screws everything up.
Yeah.
I have 17, including the publication. We added C32.
Right,
just
that
a
his
couple
and her,
minutes
yeah.
ago.
Okay,
Yeah,
I gave up trying.
Yeah.
I'm counting on you.
As soon as you entered lowercase c or something, you lost me.
They're all C's.
Really?
Parentheses,
The double I got made.
yeah, so I've got the same, so do you wanna read them off, or do I have to reference them all
I would
in the
reference
motion?
them.
Okay.
It could be,
It's gonna be part of the minutes that we're gonna approve next week anyway,
Yeah.
I mean, next month,
Yeah.
but.
Alright.
Just for the benefit of
So,
But to make it-
I'll make the motion, and if you could just read off each of them.
Okay.
Alright, so I'm gonna make a motion to move forward, the following sections of our review, to be, assessed by Attorney Vitti and, make the necessary language adjustments to address our concerns.
Are you gonna add the numbers, or that's
I'm
your motion?
sorry, yes,
Yeah.
I am.
All right,
Okay.
then I would love to second that motion.
Okay.
Okay, and those will be C7-1, C11-11, C6-8, C2-5, C10-2E, C6-8, C7-11, C8-9, C8-13, C4-4B, C4-4D, C4-5A, C8-13, C4II, C10-2G, C10-4A, and C3-2.
So for purposes of transparency, can we give some kind of indication what these sections correspond to?
When, in the
In the
motions,
minutes.
or in the minutes, yes,
Yeah,
I'm
they'll be
gonna,
next to it, yeah.
I'm gonna, put the heading to each one of those, and
Okay,
I'll
great.
list
Perfect.
those out.
Great,
Excellent.
thank you.
Yep.
Alright. And that was the easy part, folks.
So we've got.
You gotta vote on that.
Oh, yeah,
Second,
let's,
right?
yeah. All in favor of moving that motion forward, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Alright. Can't wait for that bill next month.
We had a credit.
Not anymore.
We're still working off a
130,
credit.
16.
You'll have to go to
Wishful
public
thinking.
utilities for them to pay for it.
Okay, so now on to,
The hot plate.
yeah, exactly, the hot plate, great term.
Are we gonna start at the top of the list?
Yes, so,
I wanted to put that one on the vanilla list, but I thought somebody would have a stroke, so I figured we debated one a little
Talking
more.
about-
What are you talking
I didn't
about?
hear that
Yeah.
one.
is it C3?
The Board of Selectmen going from a 2-year to a 4-year, I'm
Okay.
opposed to making that change. I wanted to talk about that in the beginning, but.
Mhm.
What's the number on that one?
That is-
C3-4.
C3-4. Okay, thank you. I'll find it.
Mhm.
You know, this conversation has come up year after year after year, and we had testimony during the winter from selectmen's and first selectmen's, and I just consider it's part of the job. If you wanna run for first selectman, or you wanna run for selectman, campaigning in politics is part of the game. And I think that having a 2-year term over a 4-year term is the checks and balances in the town of Bethel, and I would be against changing it to a 4-year term.
Anybody else wanna offer
I'm in favor of changing it to 4-year term.
before your
I
term?
think the learning curve to get in, by the time you learn the job, is getting more and more complicated. And then having to run for office right around the corner, it doesn't do anyone any good. I'd rather have someone in there a little longer that can gain experience. And versus, you know, once they get elected, you gotta have a learning curve at least 6 months or so, and then you're already worried about getting reelected.
Can I?
Yeah, no, please.
So that's great, and I totally get there. There's a learning curve to anything we do in life when we
Right.
first do it. But
Right.
if you're doing a good job and you get elected this year, and you're
Right.
in for 2 years, and it takes 6 months to learn the job,
Yep.
and if you're doing a great job for the next year, then you don't have to worry about the learning curve again. If you're doing a good job, you're gonna be reelected and time moves on. That's the problem I have with that argument.
No, I understand what you're saying, and so basically, and usually I'm very much in favor of anything more public input, and that by 2-year term you have a more public input, so I see the benefit of that, but I just see it as such a complicated position, and it's not just experience, it's also making those contacts. I think that type of position, knowing who to contact in Hartford, or who, you know, this isn't like usually from what I see, like career politicians who do it for a while, they get into the position and they gotta start making those contacts. And anytime you're in a new position, you may call, I don't know, let's say the governor. If you're new, he may not take that call. Once you make that relationship, he may take that call. So I think it's just beneficial to have someone there for a longer period of time, to be able to make those contacts, get the experience, and understand, you know, there's certain things that at first they may think it's good for Bethel, but then as, you know, they're learning, no, it's not good. You know, I just think experience plays a huge part in the role of a selectman.
What if a first selectman gets elected, right? Does a
Yep.
good job because he's about 50 years old, right?
Okay.
He does his 4 years, now he's about 55, right?
Okay.
He wants one more term.
Okay.
He gets in for 4 years,
Yep.
and he doesn't do anything for the town of Bethel. We've got him for 4 years, regardless of who
Yep.
he knows to call in Hartford. You and I got him for 4 years.
Agreed.
And it's and our only way is through the voting booth to get rid of somebody that's not doing the job for us.
Definitely.
If he's
trade-off.
doing a good
Yep.
job, you and
Yep.
I will vote for him.
Right, right. Again, I think there's trade-offs either way, and I understand your viewpoint. And usually you'll find I'm very much all public input. I just think the experience in such a complicated job, you know, outweighs. I mean, if you were looking for like 6 years, I'd be like, oh, no way. But I think 4 years, just everything that plays into it, there's a reason to set for most offices at 4 years to make that, to become really efficient and good at it, I think, and knowledgeable at it and beneficial. I like the 4-year term.
Does anybody else have any opinions?
I'm gonna abstain from
for you.
discussion and voting on this.
Okay. I hope that doesn't become a trend, because
You guys are just voting to keep
To
this
move
on
it
the hot list, or?
Yeah.
Or, yeah,
Yeah. I think
whether.
it should be kept on the hot list, and
I think we
needs
need
more
the public
discussion.
input
Because
from
I
it,
do
I'd be
too,
curious
because-
where they.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could argue either side of this.
I was just
too.
gonna say, that could go
Well,
both ways
either
with that.
to
either
your
side of it.
point,
Sure.
you could, depending upon when the governor's election is, you could have a selectman have a great relationship for 2 years. Now he's got 2 more and he has a new governor, he's gotta start all over.
And I'm just
So-
using governor as an example.
But
Yep.
it depends upon how it
Yep.
fell.
Yep. I
I'm
just.
putting Sharon in my camp. I got it.
And I'm using the governor example. It may not be another elected person. It may be someone, and again, I don't do the job. Those connections are extremely important in
necessary
business, and those necessary connections, again, I see John's point where it's, very beneficial 2 years, because I love that part, but, you're doing a great job, you're just gonna reelect them. You're not, but I'm tipping the scales with that experience, and those business contacts are so important, and experience is so important in my mind in something like this, that I think it just overtips it a little bit. And I'd be curious where the public, I could be swayed with how the public feels about it, so, I would definitely like to hear the public.
And for us, I think this conversation has evolved as well, not just to 4-year terms, but looking at, do we abandon the first selectman as the chief executive officer and bring on the town manager paid? Yeah.
That was a wild concept that I don't know if the town's ready for that,
No,
I mean, if we went to a town manager form of government, the first selectman would get a decrease in pay. We would lose a couple of department heads because we gotta justify his $200,000 salary.
No, I think
That
the
would
first,
be a tough set.
well, the first selectman, it wouldn't be a full-time job anymore.
Right, that's what I mean, right, right, all of a sudden somebody lost a job,
Yeah,
it was
well-
quite a charter revision,
And this is where I would disagree, because you need the public input. I like the selectmen thing.
Right, me too.
Public input is, you only get better with different points of view and public input, so. I would
But
definitely-
it's how we function with the police department, it's how we function with the Board of Education. There's not a single thing structurally that prevents public input.
I think from the structures I've been hearing, I think you're giving too much authority to that one person or one office. I like the form it is in now. I mean, I go to like town meetings and stuff, not to hear what I agree with, but to hear what I don't agree with. I've been swayed both ways,
Yep.
So I think that's extremely important.
So do we want to include that at all for public input, or do we want to just focus on the town manager piece, or the?
I think we should include all of it,
Okay.
because, and I think it's interrelated, because you might
Mhm.
feel differently about terms if you change structure.
Mhm.
If you felt that was the way to go, I think they're interrelated.
All right.
So are you gonna make a motion on
Well, I'll see if we can kind of do a bulk motion again, if we're,
Well, with that one, because you have C3-4, but you're also talking about changing the form of government.
Well,
So
it-
really.
No, for the point of public hearing.
yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying that you were
Oh.
including that, which is
Mhm.
not part, I'm just wondering if a separate motion for that. I'm not saying that you're putting that.
I would
in.
say not just, I think that's when we choose the next public hearing date.
Okay.
And basically, what's our press release going to say in terms of
Yeah.
what we're requesting input on,
So do you want a motion on
Um,
stating that?
Not just yet, because it's,
Okay.
because I think if we look at my next one is the non-binding advisory question. If we're kind of in the same place with
Okay,
everything.
So just let Nick do it all.
Well, no, these aren't to Nick yet. These are,
Yep.
Nick's got his work, and this is still for us to.
Okay.
Still in play.
Yep. All right, so on the non-binding advisory question, is this something we feel we should move forward, we should leave alone?
And so, Nick, is the issue there that we add another, either it's, we've we've already got too high, too low, and it would be it's okay? Are we looking to add, it's, this is just right?
Mhm.
Is that the issue with the non-binding advisory
I
question?
thought the issue was leave it in or take it out.
Yeah, it's gotta leave it and take it out,
Yeah.
or
Or
add
any
a third
combination.
option.
But I think
Or
we're
add.
adding,
Yeah.
or even adding to it.
One of three
Right.
things.
So, but leave it in and make it bigger.
Right.
And expand it.
Mhm.
And I think it would be more informational to the general voter in general to have just right, or maybe that's not the exact terminology we'd want to use, but something to that effect, because, working at the polls, people always ask that question, too high or too low, but if I vote for it, I'm saying it's too high, but that means what, so why am I voting for it if I think it's too high, or if I think it's too low? No, really, people.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah, that's-
no, I think you're right.
That was
And
part of our
frustrates some
debate, yeah.
people,
Yes.
they may have put not a false answer, but they get confused
Right,
or
right.
aren't really sure what to do, so they say, oh, I guess I'll check this because we always wanna spend less money, or,
Right.
that type of thing, or if I check.
they aren't given the
if I
option
check too
to say
low,
it's just
maybe it
right.
looks like I don't wanna spend that much money on education. And the people will get, and it'll work against, I know it's a non-binding, but I
Right.
mean,
I have a question.
records.
Was this, I can't recall if this was part of the charge. Was this
Yes.
Board of
Yeah,
Selectmen?
yeah,
Okay,
yep.
So, on all the items that are part of their charge, you should just address, definitely. And
Okay.
You have the ability to go outside the charge and bring anything else that you want to address in, but the chart, every item on the charge should be addressed in some
So it's either yes or no, or we can't change.
Well, we can add, I think their charge was to remove it. So the question on the table that you want to
Mhm.
definitely address is whether or not to remove it or not. And then a separate question that you have the ability to bring in would be whether or not to create a hybrid, just right, or, does that make sense? Or was
Sure.
that
yeah,
confusing?
yeah.
Alright, so I guess that simplifies our conversation right now.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion that we reject the non-binding advisory question to eliminate it off of the town votes. That's my motion.
So take it out of the charter review.
Right, to
Okay.
reject their chart, yeah, in the charge,
Reject
yeah.
taking it out.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No,
Double
no,
check.
no, we were charged from the selectman's office
Right.
to take the advisory question out of the charter,
Oh,
so
oh,
it doesn't go
oh,
on the
okay.
ballot.
So saying,
I'm saying to remove it and
From
to
that.
deny it.
Right, okay,
So we would be leaving,
leave it in.
and then you could do a
Right.
hybrid or
Revise it.
something,
Right.
change it later. So
That makes sense.
the attorney said we first gotta decide if we're gonna take that recommendation and go with it or not.
Right.
My motion would be to leave it in the charter.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
any discussion? Yeah, yeah. Okay, we'll just call a vote. All in favor of, not pursuing the charge of removing the non-binding too high, too low advisory questions, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, signify by saying nay. Any abstentions?
Thank you.
All right. I think structurally that was a wise decision as well, 'cause it's kind of just one of those landmine issues that can,
The testimony I heard over the winter was we need the space on the
Mhm.
ballot, and I'm not gonna buy that. If we're spending money to get people to come and vote their conscience or
Yeah.
their decision, then give them every tool in the book, in the box to tell us what they're believing.
and yeah, and the significance of it could really impact some of the other issues on the charter by having it on.
Yeah, right,
the
right, it
final
could be a fight, it
referendum.
could be a
Yeah,
fight.
if it gets packaged
Yeah,
with other
yeah.
stuff. All right,
Not worth the fight, right?
so moving on to failure to adopt.
Wait, so
Oop.
are we gonna say anything else about the non-binding advisory question?
Like
Yeah, does
adding to
anybody
it?
wanna make
Oh.
a motion to say, I would like to add to just right, or,
Acceptable, would that be high, low, acceptable?
what would the term, or maybe we
Think
think
about
about the term.
Acceptable, well, I mean, it could be acceptable and still be too high or too low, I don't know if I would say acceptable.
What was the term you would use?
And just right makes me
The
think of
voters, when they
childhood.
come
Yeah.
in.
It does.
You could actually
When
take
the
it-
voters come in, they're looking
No, the bears,
just
right?
The beers, it's too hot.
You
Just
could-
right.
Soft, too hard,
I would
just right.
suggest keeping this on the hold list and
Yeah.
getting public input on what's the best language. If
Yeah.
you are going to have some sort of hybrid
I
there.
think we're leaning that way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Failure to vote on the advisory question is what you asked. That's how you say it's just right. You vote on the budget, and then
Yeah.
you.
If you don't vote at
that's-
all, if you leave it empty.
If you don't vote at
Right.
all on the advisory, you are
Mhm.
getting the info from that cohort of the electorate.
But that
you-
confuses some.
If you get 1,000 votes and only 900 people answered the question,
Yeah.
100 people thought it was just right.
Yes,
But some
because-
people
Well, you
feel
don't
they
know
must,
that. No, you don't
some
know
people
that.
feel
Well, you're
they
fair,
must
right.
circle every single thing.
Right.
So anyway, I voted for a budget and I vote too high, because it is too high, but I still think the town needs to spend the money.
I know, but everybody may not understand.
Well, and I think that's kind of the core issue with the
People don't
advisory
get their
question, is
message.
people don't really
It's not, and that's why it's
understand
non-binding, because it's
Right.
really hard to put.
exactly what
They
it
don't know what
is.
they're
and-
talking about.
Right.
Okay, so moving on. Yeah, so we'll review potential changes and verbiage for that. So failure to adopt, does everybody remember this? This is where
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm
which
sorry,
one?
we didn't get,
What's that?
it's proposal C from the
C6
selectmen.
3, section C, failure to adopt.
6S3 to.
Under the.
No, it had been a whole new provision, right?
Yep. This is the one, if the budget goes down, the Board of Finance could, or the Board, is the Board of Finance or Selectmen could take money out of one side and put it in the other to offload
The
it.
Board of Finance.
That's a tough one. If I voted for a school budget or a town budget because I wanted better roads or I wanted better math classes, and then somebody was able to take the money after I voted, that's a tough one. But that's in the argument on splitting the budget. That, it all plays together.
It's like bifurcated, like I think we're either bifurcated or we're not. And this, to me,
Yeah.
doesn't seem like it's anything but more confusion.
Right. Except it's a tool that it sounds like they really need to keep a budget afloat, right?
C.
If they keep voting the school down or the town down, you know, the town needs a certain dollar amount to run. That's the only, that's where I have a hard time saying, let's not deal with it, or let's vote it out. It sounds like they really need it.
But there's certain mechanisms on the town side, like the 460 account that the town still can take money out of. They still have access to money that really is earmarked for the schools.
So why would they think it's important to put it in, propose it then, Cause it seems
You know,
really
I guess
clouded
if-
here.
I guess if the budget went down and they were looking at where they had to take the money, they really still have a mechanism to take it out of the
The
schools, the
yeah.
school side,
Mhm.
because they have jurisdiction over the 460 if they chose to do that.
So you're saying that this is not that important?
I think it needs to be discussed. I mean, and all aspects of it brought out.
Melanie, I'm sorry.
Melanie,
I didn't
we
hear what
can't
you said.
stand you.
I know, it's hard, I can't hear you guys.
Do you want to turn this
This
off?
loud, and I'm
Yeah,
I
that's
was
fine.
talking
No,
about direction.
I know.
I said I
Yeah.
just thought there should be more discussion about that issue, because, there's a Nick's point that he made, and I think it is something we should have a public hearing and be
Oh, I
able to
agree.
comment on.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Is there a
Oh,
lot of-
yeah, I think we should move it
There's a lot
forward.
of,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff there, we just wanna be sure we're taking it all into
Yeah.
consideration before, I think, taking,
So-
taking a position on it, is all I'm saying.
The way it's written right now, just so I can get clarification, because I'm gonna have to read this slowly here. It prevents them from moving from one to another if one passes.
If the town side passes,
Or
they
vice
can't
versa.
take
That's
money
right,
and put it in the
The
school
way it's
side.
written right now.
Mhm.
Right, and this allows them to adjust it, because they say they can't operate without having certain money in it.
Also, this allows them to actually,
Take it from the school side to fund the town side, or vice versa. And that's only because if one side of the budget just keeps getting chopped apart,
all right,
they say, well, we need money.
okay. All right.
It's a tough one.
Doesn't it dilutes the fidelity of a vote, though?
Yeah.
Like, if you
Yes,
vote
that's-
to pass.
That's what I mean,
And then-
if I'm so strong on, I need all the money in the schools, and then
Yeah.
you say, oh, wait, now you're gonna take it out and you're gonna put it on the town side, I thought, your budget was because you
Mhm.
needed it.
It's against what I voted for,
Yeah.
or what passed. Yep.
Right. It's like a
Okay.
shell game.
Yeah, yeah. All right, and I'd certainly like to hear a little bit more on this from the
I'm
public.
not sure they're gonna understand what it really,
Yeah, and I think,
Explain it.
to me, it kind of feels like, a political solution to
Mhm.
an operational challenge. You know,
Mhm.
how do you,
And I think, Nick, was it you or was it Nick who researched other town charters that had a split budget, you know, two, you know, like we do? And we were looking to see if they had a mechanism, you know, and they don't.
Yeah,
It doesn't
yeah.
appear. So they, you know,
But, and I think it's important, and I'm sorry, I love to talk, but when either the schools, who said that?
Heard that.
But I think when we finally split the budgets, we got a really responsible budget from either the school side
Yeah.
or, you know, in past years, we didn't get that. All of a sudden, we got split budgets and everybody said, oh, we better get in line and give the right budget, the real budget, and go get it passed, right? If you fluff it up, you're in jeopardy of going down, and when they go down once, they're gonna go down again if you get people riled up. So, I think they, you know,
Yep.
anyway, I thought that was important.
Okay. So the conversation will certainly continue.
It's a good one.
it was good.
Okay. And then, I think the only thing I have on my list is moving the date of the town meeting.
Yeah.
We've heard a lot about it, it's not in the charge. You know, is this something we wanna pursue? You know, with more public input, have we heard enough to decide whether to move it forward or just let it stay as is?
We weren't charged with that?
Yeah, clarification.
Yeah, we were.
And what-
I thought it was.
Yeah.
I thought you were, and I thought
That's
they
where the
didn't
idea
wanna
came up,
change it.
because
Right.
I certainly didn't have the
I thought they
idea.
did not wanna change it.
But
Can
Paul
you
and I
check on that?
voted for it, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, but it's not in the official selectmen's charge, right? You guys offered up in
I
your
thought it
public
was.
comment?
I
I thought
thought
it
it was.
was.
I thought it was.
I thought it was.
Yeah, I thought it was too. I was pretty sure at the
Because
beginning.
It was a 2-to-1 vote on it, so I
Action
think it
required.
should have been in charge, included in it.
I believe it was.
And the charge being to keep the date where it is now?
To look at it.
To look
I
at
don't
it?
have the original, I can get
I've
it
got
if
it
I
right here,
need
I'm not
to.
seeing it.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe we just started talking about it. Everybody was talking about it.
Yeah.
Well, the only one that came and really spoke against us changing the date was the tax collector.
I don't think that's quite right.
You know?
I don't, because I know, I believe Dr. Carver spoke about being able to start the hiring process. a lot
Oh,
sooner,
okay, all right.
And that was
Okay.
really
Yeah.
advantageous.
Mhm.
And I think there were other departments, in fact, I don't want to misspeak about this,
Yep.
but what was the position of the Board of Finance? I don't
I don't
remember a
remember
strong,
the chair.
I mean, I don't remember a strong position
I don't
saying,
either.
we can't get the
Bob
job done.
Kozlowski was here with Ann Zacco,
Yeah.
and he sort of went with her.
Bob Manfredo was here and
Yeah.
it was,
I don't think Bob said
Yeah,
anything
yeah,
about it.
so which leads me to believe if it were something he was really concerned about. I think he was more concerned about massaging the language, Dion, on the time period between,
Shortening it, yeah, from
Than
7 to
saying,
14 to
because
7.
because usually we're waiting for the state budget and waiting for those answers and waiting and waiting and
Right.
waiting.
I remember that.
And to wait for that, it just isn't gonna happen, and still get a budget out and get tax bills out. And it's an unusual year when a budget gets through
Yeah.
at the state
From
level.
my records on this was not in the charge, but I think was brought up by Rich and Paul Zetkowski at the
Okay.
initial
Oh, the first-
public
Okay.
hearing.
Yeah, that's what I heard as well.
I do, in my notes here, I do have 3 points that Ann Scacco, presented. Why she supports continuing with the schedule, loss of revenue associated with late billing. The town has accomplished and received all necessary information to move forward with the annual town meeting in April, and it is not guaranteed to have necessary information from the state if we wait until May for the annual town meeting.
Right.
Now, those were just 3 of the points, if you go back and, but that's,
And those are the 3 that actually changed my mind. You know, when they all said that if we wait until October, we probably still wouldn't have the numbers. You know, and I find that difficult to swallow, but what's the sense of waiting another 30 days if you're not gonna have the numbers and you're only making guesstimates anyway? You know, now, there is something to be said, why does Monroe kick it down a little further? Because they think they're gonna get numbers somewhere, I don't know if you get insurance numbers that help you, you know, but this year, to Phil's point, they found $200,000. Well, $200,000 helps, you know, on a town budget when you're looking for 3%, you know, and why we find the money after a vote, I don't know, but that's been the problem with Bethel.
Well, I mean, that specifically was the administrative team getting money back from the state on unfiled documents for the high school renovation.
Okay, but it always seems like we find it after.
The timing
It
was
was just
coincidental.
Yeah.
It
Happens
was
every
years
year.
coming, it was
Mhm.
years
Okay,
since
great,
that project was over, and they
Yeah.
finally finished their audit.
And it
and
helped
they-
the whole.
And, yep, and,
Only took 10 years to get that money.
yeah, really, it was.
Well, and that's-
Okay, and that makes me feel
just-
better.
Just happened
Okay.
to land where it did, when it did.
But I always seem like
Nobody
it's
knew
a
where it would
headline in the
land.
News Times that,
Yeah.
you know, Anthem Blue Cross just gave us a credit because nobody got sick, and then we found 300,000, right? I mean,
Yeah,
these are
yep.
big numbers, I mean, you
Yep.
know?
No, I mean, and just in the spirit of that was, the administrative team could have just said it wasn't us and we don't need to worry about it, but they were digging through the stacks and getting all the paperwork and got the state to overturn and send the money back.
And you know what, when the Board of Ed, this is a personal opinion,
Yeah.
when I see their budget, I really believe that that's kind of what they need to
Mhm.
educate our kids.
Yeah, yep.
15 years ago, I didn't think that. So,
Mhm.
you know, that's a compliment to the Board of Ed and to what's happening upstairs on the third floor.
Okay, so continue that forward as well, the failure to adopt. I do remember the time period, shortening it, I forget exactly what provision that is.
7:14 or something?
The 14-day thing?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
after the town meeting to be able to
that
set that.
is- No, you added that
Yeah, we did
to
that in the
housekeeping.
vanilla
Oh, that's
category.
housekeeping, okay.
Yeah.
And then also, I don't remember the provision, I remember Ms. Yansky came in, asking if we could add specific verbiage to, the bidding provision.
Oh, yeah, for them to partake in that.
Cooperative.
Yeah, the consortium,
I looked for that today and I didn't see that.
yeah,
Do you want me to read what, I
Cooperative
just copy
purchasing.
and pasted out of the minutes?
yeah, yep.
Board of Education Director of Fiscal Services Teresa Yansky requested the committee to look at including purchasing cooperatives in the bidding process. She shared that this technique, which is already used with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, simplifies the process of producing requests for proposals, RFPs, and requests for quotations, RFQs. Ms. Yansky suggested this is an alternate to the bidding process.
Can we amend your motion, Nick, and to add that? I think we could maybe get that through tonight to the 17
Yeah, I think
that we
I-
currently did.
Yeah, we just have to, I'm trying to figure out where that sits in that. Do we know where bidding, finance, taxation?
It's under the controllers section.
Under control? So general powers and duties?
You looking for the 7-day thing?
No,
No.
the bidding piece.
Oh,
You're trying to figure out where it fits, right?
Yeah, yeah.
While you're looking for that, I did look up your minutes, and it was in January, the January 9th meeting, you had the discussion with Ann Sacco, so Sacco, something must have happened that she came and gave a presentation, and why she didn't want
Yeah,
it.
she did.
Yeah, all the department heads
Yeah.
were asked to
Oh, right, okay.
come and talk to
It was
us
in
about
January.
any charter revisions or proposed changes.
Any of their recommend, yeah.
purchasing authority?
Yeah, could.
Yeah, which, where is that?
Where's that?
I see a C.
I thought
C
control
8-13C.
I'm sorry, what is it?
8-13.
Well, that's under purchasing authority is C.
8-13.
Let's see.
October, all right, there we go.
Yeah, it's in that section, which, the
Okay.
bidding requirement of $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
It's under I, the 4-1.
Somebody call off the number.
It's C8-13
4-1.
for I think.
The 1, whatever it is, yeah.
That's
All
an
right.
I think. The next one's the Y.
C813 C 4 I.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, why did they change that?
I mean, I really don't have any problem with it if that anybody can do it, not just the Board of Ed. That the Board of Ed was the one that brought it to our attention, and Terry cited various things that she could do that way. But I just think, since the way it's written this way, and it's always been the lowest responsible bidder kind of thing, then something in the verbiage should be that other departments other than the Board of Ed.
Well, if it's in here,
Could
that covers everybody. It's
could
not
be able
specific
to
to the
do
Board of
it.
Ed, just Terry brought it up.
But she's the only one that has come and really specifically asked for it from us.
She's-
Nobody else has.
Yeah,
But once
it
it
does an
makes
offline
that, once it makes
conversation.
that Bible, anybody then could do it too.
Right. It's
Yeah.
just like the different people coming and saying they didn't want to meet here anymore. They want to meet at the police station or on
Affects them.
sidewalks, what affects them. So I just think the wording in here, if we're gonna do it, should be open and enough that anybody could do it, whether it be highway department, a fire truck, whatever.
I agree.
That's all.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great tool for all the departments to use.
It's an option.
Mhm.
Agreed.
So,
Because they do the request for proposals, they do all that stuff, and they have the expertise maybe that we might not have in-house
Mhm.
to describe some of these things that we need.
What is there must be a fee to do this, right?
it's nominal, it's like 100 or something. It's the vendors pay into the group.
We don't have to pay them?
It's nominal, I think it was.
I think there's a membership type
Yeah.
of fee that's pretty nominal,
Oh,
but
okay.
in terms of the,
It's not a percentage of what
Right,
they're-
that you
we're
buy, right.
purchasing or anything like that.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
And they do all the spec reports, or the spec requirements, which is where we
It's good
often
to have
find
somebody
ourselves
do
getting
that.
fleeced. Okay, so can we open up, oh yeah,
The fire department did something similar to that recently too. They bought the fire truck under the consortium.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And they paid, I don't know, $500 to join the consortium.
Yeah.
But they saved thousands on the truck.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's good, so an option being used,
Yeah,
which is
Mhm.
good.
yep.
So do you wanna make a motion to add that?
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to add, section C8-13 4I,
I think C4I.
yeah, C8-13 4, oh, C8-13 C 4I, to add, what's the technical term?
Yeah,
So
had the
you're
language.
gonna
Yeah.
you're gonna
Amend the
amend the
original.
motion and add that,
Yep.
so, okay.
We could amend a motion that was already voted on, or we need to add a new motion?
Let's just add a new motion.
We'll just
Yeah,
add,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
What were we calling them?
Yeah, you had it in
Yeah,
the
I-
minutes, what
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
called,
Consortium?
I have.
purchasing.
I
Purchasing
have it
agent.
under, housekeeping.
No, but from
No, what
Terry.
was her
Oh,
term?
What was it, no, from Ms. Yaski, what was the term she referred?
Purchasing cooperatives.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
to add purchasing cooperatives in the
in the
appropriate
language.
space.
Yep. I'll second that motion.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. 5-0, just Melanie had to step out.
Okay. Alrighty.
Great.
And I think that's,
I have two more
Yes.
things.
I have a couple.
No,
Sure.
please, go ahead.
I also have notes, where there was discussion about, okay, let me just read. With regard to capital construction projects, the Board of Selectmen approved a request for the commission to consider a requirement that any project at a cost of $1 million or higher be required to have complete construction plans, blueprints, and all other engineering specifications completed, prior to scheduling a referendum for final approval. So I know that there was discussion around that.
Yeah, we weren't charged with that. Paul Zidkowski brought that up, and it was a good point, but we weren't charged from the
No.
selectmen team.
I'm just
Yeah.
asking,
Yeah.
those were new charter items that were brought up. I'm just asking
By
if that's
public,
what
yeah.
you want.
I would
You
like
know,
to-
is there gonna be discussion around that, or is that just?
I would
That's a
like
good
to
point.
see it added, I like that.
I don't think it's feasible from the Board of Ed side. I think the state mandates and the process that goes through bidding the schools, we wouldn't be able to comply with it to do it.
Why wouldn't you be able to get a blueprint set? I don't understand.
Beforehand?
Yeah, before a town vote on the capital, I'm lost. Why
Because
would
of
you-
there's a
what
very
requirement?
specific process to go through the whole bidding for a school. We actually have to get the referendum before we can go up to Hartford and apply for the school bonding. So the referendum has to come, they need to know the town is
But you
backing
still
the
can have
school
the
construction.
referendum, you just have a finished set of plans already. The plans aren't, what I'm asking is, I'm sure the requirement by the state for any type of school that building it, certain things have to be in those plans and stuff, and they could be included in the plans. Once those plans are made, then it goes to referendum, and then referendum, it goes to that process. So I don't understand what the difference is. I think it's huge to be able to have those plans in hand and say, here's the plans, here's how much it's gonna cost, here's the referendum.
I don't think it's quite that simple. We
Yeah.
can,
Okay.
I'd be happy to, we're obviously going through
Mhm.
this process
Yep,
right now, but
yep.
there are very specific educational specs.
Right.
Has to be approved every step along the way by people in Hartford.
Mm-hmm.
So even if we had plans, preliminary plans, I don't know that we could go through that process without having a referendum. I think we have to have a referendum to start that process. But I'd prefer to have somebody who
Yep.
knows specifically that we can ask these questions to. I just don't want there to be unintended consequences.
No,
with
absolutely,
This
I
kind of
agree.
thing where we find ourselves violating charter and we can't, do what the
Right.
school
Well,
process would
what if
require.
By doing that, you don't know how much, you don't
Right.
have a good idea how much it's gonna cost, then, do you?
We just did it, and we have a guaranteed price that.
But,
we did.
yeah, but
But when you went to if I may,
Yeah,
when you went
please.
to
Yeah.
referendum, you had a cost estimate
That was
from
approved.
the architect. You didn't have any finished drawings or anything at the time, you had a conceptual plan.
Right.
And that's what they went to the referendum.
But why can't you
But
do-
What if
there
it
was a
wasn't right?
stopgap. There was a stopgap built into the referendum.
Mhm.
If you did not get your bonding, the project died, and
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
paid for the plans and specifications up to that
Mhm.
job.
Right.
I just don't
Right.
see the difference between having conceptual or the plans in hand. I think it's very informative to the, but I
if the
wanna
town-
make sure at the same time, we're not messing something up on the other
Mhm.
side.
If the town is willing to expend $6 million for plans and specification and go on
The hook.
the hook for it,
Yeah.
and if the state doesn't approve it, then the town is really on the hook for the amount
Okay.
of money that you already had, so.
And it-
Yes, Paul's idea, and that was my idea
Right.
also, that it would be a great thing to do. Maybe not with the school buildings, with other municipal building projects.
Right.
You could do that, but there are a lot of state educational, requirements
Mhm.
involved in that whole process. It's a years process
Mhm.
to get a
So you're
school
basically
built.
risking about $6 million
Well,
on
it-
the
Well, and the
depends on
difference
what your
is,
project
if
It's a
it,
percentage.
you get,
Right, yeah,
we get
okay.
40% of that back,
Yeah.
or,
But it's
40-ish
still risk.
back
Well,
of this.
but they're changing their reimbursement. We don't know how.
Well,
what
ours
we
is
get back
good,
in the
whoever,
future.
like
Yeah.
Brookfield, New Fairfield, good luck.
You gotta
So is
just
it
under the
different for
wire.
the town side?
Yeah.
Is that what, would it be different for the town side?
Yeah, the town doesn't have those requirements.
They don't bond.
from the state.
So
They-
would
they
be
don't
able
have
to
the
do
school.
so for the town
You
versus
could-
the
You
school?
could put that language in any municipal building projects. It could be a pool, it could be a track, it could be soccer fields, it could be
But
That's
same
fully
concern
funded by the
again,
taxpayers of
how do
Bethel-
we
Bethel.
verify by doing so we're not affecting something else down the road and getting in some type of violation that way?
Cause you basically say,
I don't do it,
any municipal projects other than school buildings.
No, what I'm saying,
Well,
again, this is where the
or
expertise
something.
comes in, I know nothing about how it worked through the state and stuff, I just, again, same sign as school, if we do
Mhm.
it just for the town, is there something in the state for the town that we messing up?
Well,
I don't know.
Here's
How
a
do we
good
verify?
example, the police station.
Right,
The police station, you could have hired the architect and
Right.
gotten the bids out before they even broke grounds and had all that together. I mean,
Mhm.
that was a building, a
Mhm.
municipal building, or,
okay,
they're talking about remodeling, playing fields and stuff. I mean,
Right.
it's multiple $1,000,000 projects.
Some, I'm just thinking off the top, because this one concerns me, because I think I'd have to do a lot of research. I think I need to.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's the other, like-
We need to get some clarification. I think anywhere where you're getting state grants, it might cause
Mhm.
unintended consequences. So there could be municipal projects where you do get state grants too. I'm not saying that this is a bad idea, but
Right.
I think we need to be careful.
I think I'd like to explore it a little bit more,
Yeah, I do too.
really like having this is what it costs versus,
Yeah, so do we all.
right, if possible, you know.
Well, because if you start and you don't know the real cost, you
Right.
what reasonable person would say, well, let's stop.
And honestly,
Exactly.
you don't know the real cost, because then you throw in tariffs and other
Mhm.
things that happen over time that nobody had any idea, and then suddenly, your construction costs.
But if you have engineered plans, you
Or
have a
change.
much more realistic
Yes.
cost.
Yep.
Than a concept
So
idea.
just leave that for discussion amongst.
Yeah, I think it's a good
Yeah, I
idea.
think we
Also,
need-
I think
we
we
need-
just have to be careful about any unintended consequences, that we don't get ourselves in a box.
The only other notes that I have here is that there was discussion of making the town clerk a hired position instead of an elected position. It was pointed out that when the town clerk is meeting expectations, both parties can endorse that person during reelection. I think you made that, so.
Yep.
And it's a 4-year term, right, town clerk?
It's a 4-year,
So
yeah.
I guess we'll just leave it.
And I believe Lisa as well would rather be elected.
I'm just
Yep.
Yep.
All of the
cover
right,
everything
housekeeping, yep,
that's.
yep.
I did ask at the beginning, and I don't know if it's viable or possible, because it happened in the past, capital budget have to be voted on separately. I know people had asked me about that.
Oh,
And I'm thinking
if
what
you have
happened
3
years
capital
ago.
projects, they have to be
Right. And
separate line items.
They were referencing the library, school, and fire department vote that time. They like to, they had to vote
Oh,
for one
instead
if
of
they
it-
wanted the other.
Okay.
They had to
Capital
vote
items being
they
lumped
want-
into one.
instead of
vote.
one
Right, so
lump
if
vote.
you're a fireman, you had to vote for them all.
Didn't
Right.
you-
Exactly.
I thought you addressed that question, Rich.
Matt did, he said it was like
Matt.
22 years ago, and we all felt older that night.
Well,
Pretty
no,
much.
it wasn't 22 years ago. It was the library, fire department.
And
Yeah.
Berry School.
Grade school, yeah.
How many years ago?
Well, I was town attorney, it was like back in 01, 02, around then.
Oh, so only 18, I exaggerated by 2. Sorry, Rich.
But it's still in
Can't
people's
drink yet.
minds.
Still
so-
2 years.
Oh, and then there was also, when Tim Beeble and Nancy Ryan were here, there was a recommendation having the language that allowed one-item referendums to not follow the same time requirements as the special town meetings. If a general election is in close proximity, to add the item to that, which in turn would create a larger voter turnout and save the town money by combining referendums. Another recommendation was, the amount of the budget presented inside the polling booth, but the actual ballot reading amount voted on amount voted on at the annual town meeting. So you remember they were saying if the ballot said that, but then you could read what the actual, yes, what the actual expenditure would be, and that would save time and money when ordering and having the ballot shipped for the referendum. Do you remember that conversation?
I kinda do, but I don't.
Yeah, something to that effect.
Which is more housekeeping.
Yeah.
I know they were talking about waiting for the FedEx truck outside.
Exactly, and
the
that's
whole-
what that
Yeah,
was
right.
referring to, where if you had, I remember, her saying that if you had just a sign there, you know, amount voted on at the annual town meeting is what your ballot is going to say, but having the signage in the poll booth for you to read, to know what you're voting on, then that way they could, you know, more of a generic,
Oh, ballot.
Then you
Ballots.
can't put anything in the poll booth.
I'm just, well, these aren't my words, this is.
I know, but of course,
That accent came right out.
I can't do it.
These are registrars
I
that
don't
will
care.
bring that
That took
information.
care of it.
Secretary of State, you can't put anything, you have to send people around to make sure there's nothing at all in
Okay.
those voting booths.
All I'm saying, you might want to, all I'm saying is that was what Tim and Nancy came, the registrars came and
Yeah,
were
I
talking
remember,
about.
but I
So-
don't think it was in the
Okay,
voting booth.
so whatever, they
Okay.
came with
I
ideas.
believe
that-
what they said was, when you walk into the building, there would be a sample ballot that would then have the dollar amount you were gonna vote
Right.
for, but the ballot that you were putting yes or no
Is the
on didn't have the
generic,
number.
yes.
And I would be against that, because
Yeah,
people aren't
they
looking
don't.
at the wall.
No,
I'm-
they
This is
don't.
what I'm looking at what bubble I have to fill out completely.
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
Yeah.
trying to figure out where to go.
that's right.
Taking my sticker.
Where's my sticker? I voted, right.
So what about the first one that I read, the language that would allow one-item referendums to not follow the same time requirements as the special town meeting if a general election is in close proximity?
What's close proximity?
Right.
I don't get it.
You'd have to structure.
They
Yeah.
would include him in the main ballot.
And that was sort of, I think, Phil Gallagher's point earlier, him saying the same thing.
Yeah, he was limited it to twice a year, where I think that was.
And I think that would have been problematic in, again, the school situation where we're on this timeline and you have to get the approval and you have to have it by this date. And if you're not close to a general election or a budget vote or anything, you just have to have
Yeah.
a referendum.
Okay, those are all the notes that I have.
Can we get back to Pat? Pat, did we have discuss or come to a resolution on splitting up capital items? I think that was a great idea, Pat. Did we get to
No.
an ending on that? I thought we glazed over it.
We did. I mean, it had to happen years, but can
Yeah, that's
language, yeah, could language be added in? And where?
I would be much in favor of that.
Well, can it not happen now, I guess is the question too. Is it prohibited? Or is that just a choice we make?
Wasn't it just on the last ballot that were you voting for capital items separately, or was that, it was all bulked together, wasn't it?
It was bulked together, but I'm
To
saying.
Pat's point, he wants to separate it where you have to fill a
have to be
bubble under each
separated.
one.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying,
I mean, it could be the same
can that?
referendum, but different
is
lines.
that-
It has to be different. You're saying it
It
should
has
be
to be
different.
different lines, because you're taking away the power to vote again. You
Right.
want one, you're gonna have to vote all.
There's reasons for it, and this is, I don't remember, it must have been Matt who addressed it, there's reasons for it,
Oh, I know what the reasons are.
and well.
Yeah,
not-
and that's
I'm
why
not
they're
talking-
asking for
I'm not-
it.
But I don't know if it's prohibited, I think maybe that they could be presented on a single line item now, I don't know if that's.
But can we put it in the
So I think
charter
what you're
that
saying
it
is it
goes
has
for
to be separate.
Has to be separate. Can we add that to the charter where it has to be separate? It could be the same referendum, but separate lines.
If history's-
Is there anything in their charter right now that says that you can bundle them? I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so.
There's not, I didn't see anything either way,
Either
so
way, so.
is there something we can add to prevent that from happening?
Yeah, there's nothing.
So why can't it be added?
Yeah,
well,
so
let's
we
add
can-
that to our discussion at the
Yeah.
public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
'cause
so
I'd be
I'm sorry.
interested in what, I
See
forget
what the
off
people
top of my
think.
head why Matt's reasoning, and I know,
I don't remember him saying there was a reason. He just basically said that was years ago and people still remember it.
I thought,
I
thought
don't
recall
remember,
saying something.
They were all needed items.
What's that?
Oh,
They
I'm,
were all needed items.
I'm not
Yeah, I know,
disputing
but-
that they
but I think-
So
were.
you had one bond rather than three different
Yeah,
bonds.
it's
That's
something
why,
with the bond.
Because
Something with
each,
the bond.
referendum, you
that's-
gotta
I
do
think
a
you're right.
legal
For
this
that,
long.
that line item.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's probably
And I'm not saying it wasn't needed, I'm just.
Yeah.
Well, but if the
Yeah.
building's needed, or the purpose of that capital improvement or purchase, then it's worth spending the money on the legal fees, or whatever extra it is.
Yeah.
If history, if I'm correct, I wanted the firehouse and I wanted Berry School, but I didn't want the library. But you either voted yes or no and you got it all. So
Yeah.
that's kinda how it happens. So
Yeah.
if it's important all by itself, then I think the town should spend the extra money and get the true feeling of the voter.
Well, you voted for the library, you only got a half a library at the time.
Well, that's even worse.
That's
Now-
even
now you
worse.
make it feel even worse now.
Salt in the wounds.
You know?
It just happened with the turf field and the fire trucks.
Right.
The last one.
Right.
So, that was a bit.
All right, so can we make sure that goes on public hearing and,
Yep.
and get some public input on there?
Okay, so is there a number associated with it?
No, it's
No.
not, because it's not in there now.
Okay,
So
how
it's
do you
just a
want me-
concept.
Yeah, I mean, it would be capital non-recurring expenditures, it's C
Be
10-5.
itemized.
And put Pat's
those
name
were-
together.
That's not it.
Thanks. Put Pat's name right behind that, because I wanna see where the storm goes, you know?
Yeah, don't put the last name.
Pat, that's gonna be fun, I wanna sit next to you.
Great.
That was for capital project, not capital, not.
Yeah.
Right,
Capital
yes,
projects.
projects, right.
Capital,
Project, yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be fun, thanks.
over $1 million.
Just wanna get more people, wanna get it for the more people.
Or 2 million, make it 2 million.
Yeah.
It might be $1.5 million,
Yeah.
exactly.
Did we set a date for the public hearing?
We have, yeah, they would do
Oh,
that.
look, I'm busy.
I'm gonna schedule it right now.
All right, any other proposals that we want to add or move forward, or we think we're pretty comfortable?
No, I just have a question.
Sure.
People now had come to us and said, you know, they wanted to meet various places, you know, like walking the site on Old Hollyville Road or meeting at the police station. And Town Hall is closed on Friday afternoons. Town Hall is closed on Saturdays. So is that outdoor thing in, by the front door, do agendas get posted there?
The TV?
No, isn't there a glass
In
thing
front
that
of
you
the
unlock?
tax- It's in front of the or in front of the,
Inside the building though.
yeah, it's inside. the
Well,
building.
but what, is there anything outside the building? Well, I think we need to think about it, because if anybody, town hall is closed, somebody comes up on a Friday afternoon, they can't get into town hall, a meeting's on Monday, how do they know?
Website, where they're all
Well,
posted?
but not everybody goes to the websites, that's, you know, that's easy for you and I to say, but I know some people that wouldn't get on and look for it for anything.
Or wouldn't even know about it.
Or wouldn't even, you know how to get on. But I just think if we're gonna, we more or less said, sure, we were gonna look and change that. I think there has to be a way for agendas to be outside the building that people can see,
Like an informational,
something, yeah.
problem is maintaining that.
Because if they assume that they're gonna meet here, and they get here, and the meeting's not here, it was Saturday at 2 o'clock, walking a piece of land, and they missed it, that's not fair.
What we
I just think
propose
we need
on
to think
allowing
about it.
meetings to happen in other different buildings
Right.
didn't create that problem, that scenario that you're playing out right now. You know
No,
what
I know it doesn't, but I think we should, that's important, that it should be available for people to see. If the town hall is closed and they can't get in, then how do they know about it?
It's fair.
I just think that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of solving a problem that if it exists, it's not that, you know, we're talking about the hours from what, noon to on Friday? The building's open on Saturdays. I'm here for Park and Rec stuff all the time.
I don't think
Sundays it's open.
over here though, isn't it barricaded? You
Yeah,
can't,
you
No,
can't
you can
walk
come down.
around.
you can go by where they're posted outside the tax
Not
office.
down there, but over here where they're posted.
It's not in front, it's
Where's
It's
it
right
blocked
there.
off?
Right.
Near the ATM.
But
Yeah.
one of the objects is to lock this building up, and that's why there's proposed renovations to the bathrooms, so people don't travel through the whole
Then we
building.
can move a board over there. I mean, there's,
Well, or you
It's
could-
on
Yeah.
the chart.
Someplace where it's available,
But I
wherever
think
that
we should
is.
make something available.
Yeah, something.
Put the TV outside.
they could go use our beautiful library, go online. Yeah, like, I mean,
Post in the
there's,
library. Why not put it in the
You
library?
stand here and tell
Huh?
them. You just can stand here on Saturdays when people are looking for.
Oh, coming here. you
okay,
mean.
so I guess that'll come up. Well, do we need to pull that out of housekeeping then?
Which one?
The meetings?
Oh, I just
No,
think
I
we
think
need
we
to
should.
think
No.
about how to resolve
Yeah,
it.
how to
Okay.
notification.
But
Go
some of
for
these
it.
aren't charter issues, like,
Yeah.
like dictating
Yeah, those are.
communication strategy isn't a charter issue, that's an operational
Right, right.
component.
Procedural.
Yeah, we can't reconvene every time they change office hours or a new technology becomes available, like we can only deal with the provisions as they sit, not kind of creating.
What about, I've always thought this, like, doing like site walks or public hearings on a piece of property that it should be posted on that property so everybody knows it, not just adjoining landlords. Is that communication or is that a charter?
That's zoning, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Mhm.
That
wetlands
doesn't
It's an
are.
ordinance,
specific.
yeah.
But that's part of the minutes and it's part of the notification when you have a site walk. or
Yeah, they say
planning
it's
zone.
charters. Okay.
Is there a suggestion box here, or am I thinking there's a different, do we have a
There's
suggestion
one
box
around
here?
here somewhere.
Of
Go
what type?
Facebook.
I thought you did,
There's
well,
plenty
you know,
of them.
I
None
think
of them
there
are
is, and
good.
I was gonna say, Sharon, you should put your
Sorry.
suggestion to post them outside. I know that Danbury does.
I know,
They post
yeah.
their meetings, outside.
Other towns do,
Yep,
yeah.
and so that's maybe put that in the suggestion box, or you do know somebody in a position of authority on
You
the
won't
board of
listen
selectmen.
to me.
Do you talk to this man?
No,
You might wanna.
no.
Whole dinner.
They don't talk when they get home.
Anything but town business.
Okay.
That's a good idea, right?
All right, any other issues?
So do you want to go ahead and vote on a date for a public hearing, or are you gonna do that in August?
How long do we need for that?
2 weeks.
2 weeks? Is it 2 weeks?
August, there's still gonna be a lot of
10 days,
people on
okay.
vacation and,
Yeah,
and
it's like 5 to 10 days for public hearing.
Um,
We can do it in August and still have everything done for September.
Yeah, I'd like my fall schedule to kind of pan out a little bit more before
Sounds good.
Yeah.
But us going through the list, does it still require an August meeting before the public hearing? Do we have, what are we gonna talk about in August?
Yeah, we could bump out August as well.
I won't be here in August,
Yeah.
which means nothing, but.
And I mean, and that's something.
No, it means a lot to me. It won't be the same.
I mean, in reality, you know, it's because this one was a week late, so we'll be meeting in like 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks, so.
I'm thinking if we set this, the public hearing, that I think we've debated the information that we were charged with, and now it's time to hear what the public have to say.
Do we
And then
need
see
to
if they
see what
sway us.
Nick's gonna come up with, what his verbiage on all these things are, before we go to the public hearing?
No, everything that we did, the 17 things, we thought that we, even if the public thought we were crazy, we had a consensus that we all thought they were a great idea.
You trust Nick that much, that he's gonna
No,
write
the
a
concept-
But they won't be final, you'll still vote on the language.
Yeah.
I'll just give you some suggested language.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
There won't be, you know, Tuesday nights, there's usually either a Board of Selectmen or Board of Finance. There won't be on the 23rd or the 30th in September. Tuesday night seems to be a good night, you know, if you wanted to, or if you wanna stick with Wednesday night, because that's when we meet. What are we, we're the first?
So yeah, it'd be September 4
It'd
will
be
be our
September
regular
4th.
meeting date. That's gonna be the first week of school.
Yeah.
next week.
Then you have the 11th, the 18th, the 25th. Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at Monday nights when I said the
Mhm.
23rd and 30th, I'm sorry. 17th and 24th.
So as we're chewing up September, what is everybody's thoughts about an election year? You know, how does that play into,
Well, I think that's, yeah,
It will, but. I
Certainly,
wonder-
yeah.
It shouldn't. Yeah.
It's gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because nothing's
Yeah.
gonna happen.
Yeah. Do you wanna look at the 11th?
I prefer to do the 10th, I prefer to not do it on the 11th if possible, on a Tuesday, the 10th.
Okay.
I don't have my Board of Ed calendar on yet,
I
so
don't know,
for next
I'm
year's.
not sure.
Tuesday the
That's
11th,
a-
I
Tuesday
won't be
and
available, but
Thursday or-
doesn't,
Wednesday the
P and
11th.
Z, oh, the
Okay.
Wednesday's fine.
Oh,
Yeah.
Tuesdays, okay,
Yeah, Tuesday is a
I
P and
can
Z,
see
P and Z,
Well, and that's Board of Finance on the 10th.
okay.
so.
Not that, you know, I mean, you can have different meetings going on. That's why I said the 24th would be a Tuesday night, and there would not be Board of Selectmen or Board of Finance that night.
And what night is that?
Tuesday, September 24th.
I would love to hear what the public has to
Yeah,
say.
probably would.
Obviously, I could do it on video, but that's the next P and Z meeting.
Well,
Yeah.
oh, the 24th is?
Yeah. Because you just hit the 2nd and the 4th.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, remember Pat's bringing up some big topics. I want to be there for them. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. So then, do y'all
Well,
want to stick with
but to be clear, the public, I mean, it's literally us hearing, it's not,
Right.
yeah, not,
It's important.
yeah.
So just keep it a win.
One thing I think we should discuss too, and it doesn't have to be tonight, but,
Mhm.
how to present those items to the public. I don't
Yeah.
think we're gonna publish all, so I don't know how to
Why
get
not?
those, kind of a press release on what we're looking to hear comment on.
Mhm.
Well, we're debating not having an August meeting, so then we need to do that tonight.
Well, if we did a public hearing on September 25th, that would give us
Oh, we could have our
time to
September meeting.
meet
Yeah,
on
meet on the
September
4th.
4th,
Yeah.
kinda,
Put
you
that to
know,
rest.
do that,
I
and
would
that
be
would
in favor
give
of
us
that.
plenty of time.
And you could put another agenda item, I'll have drafts of everything.
What?
that
Yeah.
25th went
Yeah.
through on the
Mhm.
17 items.
Okay, good. So we'll have our regular
September
meeting on the
4th?
4th.
On the, yeah,
On the
so,
4th,
And then it'll be.
And
September
we're
4th.
almost putting in stone the public hearing on the 25th.
do we wanna vote on that tonight, or do we wanna wait until the 4th and then vote?
Oh, 'cause
I'm
that's
not
anyway.
gonna be here September 4th.
I'm sorry?
I'll be in Colorado.
Do you have a problem with the 25th, the public hearing?
No.
If we could vote on tonight, that would be better for me. I have to move something on the 25th, if that's the case.
okay.
Okay.
Which I can, it's not a problem.
Sounds like you were making a motion, Pat.
Okay, I make a motion for a public hearing on September 25th to review,
I
To
second
review
the
the
motion.
charter, yep.
So-
to review charter revision.
And can we just
Proposals?
add what time, 7 PM?
7 PM.
At 7
and
PM.
you'll see
In
the chiefs,
multi-purpose room?
multi-purpose, yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
And I would love to second your motion, Pat.
Everybody's
What
motion.
did you just say, Bill, because it's 20, what?
But-
You said it a million times.
September 25th,
5th.
At what time?
7 PM in the multi-purpose room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, that works.
So our next meeting will be, oh, we have to vote on that?
You need to vote.
So next meeting is the.
We have a motion and a second. All right, all in favor of holding the public hearing on September 25th, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. And do we want to skip August? Do we think we're having the early September
Yeah.
to just review next work and then,
It is.
Get
tidy
ready for
up the-
public hearing.
okay?
Point of order.
Yes,
You have a regular scheduled meeting set.
Yep.
for August.
For August.
Mhm.
I mean, you only get a few people, but if you got a few people that might want to come in and talk to you, that's an opportunity they're going to miss, but that's your decision.
Mhm.
But then our next regular meeting is
They can come,
September 4th,
and that's
before
before.
the public hearing.
Yeah, that's a regular scheduled meeting
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have the public hearing as well.
My point of skipping
Followed by-
August is everything that we debated or got a consensus on, there is no new ideas from when we adjourn tonight to September 4th.
You know what happens when you cancel meetings? Somebody shows up and says,
That's the one, like Phil said, this is the first one you could make out of 4.
Mhm.
That's fair.
I'm comfortable canceling.
I am too.
Me
Alright.
Me as well.
So I'll make a motion to cancel the regularly scheduled August, meeting, which is, I think, August 7th. Yeah, Wednesday, August 7th.
Okay, second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. All right.
So we won't meet again till September 25th.
September 4th.
But you won't be
Yeah,
here.
you'll be in Colorado, but the committee will be here.
Maybe we'll come back early.
No, you will be missed.
I doubt it.
You can watch
Please
it
All
on
right.
video.
You can call in.
Yeah.
So our last item
This
is
is our- yeah.
approval
Right.
of
Come on, Jim.
2 bills.
Is there parentheses?
Yeah, not the,
Does he get
it's got the negative down.
Did you straighten it out?
There was a credit, it was just a double credit.
Anything
Yeah,
to
yeah.
get out.
Get out of
Oh,
town.
then I'm not making a motion to pay anything then.
Well, the first one is from, June, they're both.
The end of August.
One still reflects the credit.
As of, what date is that?
They're both June 1, 2019. And one has a balance of 130.16.
What's the credit on the,
557.34.
don't pay anything?
Okay.
Perfect.
Now he'll make a motion.
Okay. All right, so we'll just put these in the file. So,
The no pay file.
yeah.
We
don't-
actually pay off statement, not invoice, so work on that, okay?
All right. So we don't have anything to do in terms of a motion. I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:12.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
I feel like we got something done tonight. We did good.
Yeah.
Yeah.